welcome to the CIS and Senteon webinar series. Episode 34, I believe we're on now, Rich. Every week, man, we're here, and I'm really excited. The YouTube channel, I've gotten some compliments of people actually having actionable takeaways and actually learning something. It's like we're doing something here.
Right on.
But very cool. We have an exciting episode today here with Ruben Gerardo, a Valentine's Day special. And Ruben, it looks like you're a little. All right, you're good. I want to make sure you weren't frozen there. We'll be reviewing the settings to optimize Microsoft Defender and a few other settings that go into today. Cool. All right. Hopefully that connection is straightening up here in a moment. Ruben, how's that connection?
Right now, it's good. I know we were just joking about it, but yeah, you started breaking up on me.
Yeah, no, it's funny because on my end your camera's a little blurry, but it's coming back as I talk. So I think we're good now. A little lag. Very funny that we were just talking about it. But Ruben, let's kick off. Ruben, I've worked with you for about the last year, and you have been one of the primary MSPs to really focus on those cybersecurity fundamentals and really prioritizing things like GPO hardening, securing the endpoints at the configuration level, and really just looking at CIS as that North Star. So I was really excited when you had some time to join us on today's episode. But instead of me talking towards you and being an MSP owner, I'd love to kind of hear your background and how maybe you got into security. And that camera does look a little frozen. Hopefully that internet is just buffering. Okay.
All right. Can you hear me now? No?
Yeah, a little bit of a lag. But...
Yeah. Okay. Sound like a Verizon commercial. Yeah. Well, I started in IT back in 2003. So I've been in it for quite a while, and I actually, and I worked my way from the bottom up, working help desk, PC repair, and just networking, cabling. So I just worked my way up the ladder and to the point where I got into system administration and when cybersecurity started becoming more of a popular topic, it got my interest. So that is that's the area that I started focusing on.
And when you say bottom up, was that more just in the MSP space, or was this enterprise and wherever work was?
Yeah, it's wherever work was, because when I got out of school, I couldn't find a job, even with the certifications I had. The problem was no experience. Okay, you have to search, but everyone wanted somebody with 3 to 5 years of experience. So the only way I was able to get in is I have to start at the very, very bottom, PC repair, help desk, and move up that ladder.
Man. So, Ruben, tell us about that experience. We've actually talked about this before on the show, and I feel like some of the most successful people we talk with really started at that level, because it really kind of gives you that empathy with end users, and that sometimes lacks in organizations.
Yeah, it definitely does, and it's something that's helped me, because I've gone through all those stages of the problems that that end users come across. PCs don't work, applications don't work. How do we troubleshoot certain aspects? So starting from the very bottom and working my way up, I'm able to get experience as to each level of all the steps that are taken in order to help the end user. So it's not just you're not just a high level engineer that only deals with certain problems, and that's that. I can work from the very basic on troubleshooting a motherboard all the way up to troubleshooting cybersecurity.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really feel like that helps a lot, don't you, Zach?
Yeah.
And, when you move up into the more of a decision making role that you're in now, it really helps you. When you're putting policy together, to really understand how that affects organizations and what the impacts are, and really helps you make better decisions along the way, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting you bring that up, especially because Ruben, in full transparency, is a Senteon user. So we were able to. I can see just the way he works with our tool, focusing on GPOs a little bit differently, right? A lot of the time, I do a lot of the educating on, hey, GPO hardening and changing configuration is important because of X, or it needs to be done because of Y. But when me and Ruben got together, he was already doing this manually, if I remember right. And having a tool that automated obviously made it a lot easier. But Ruben, like you were saying, you've been there at the ground level, networking, cabling, all of that. How how was it? How important is automating as much as you can now that you are an MSP owner?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, it helps streamline what we try to do. It helps streamline our process. It makes it easier for us to do our jobs
Mm-hmm.
rather than doing it manually, which can be very, very time consuming. Being able to automate this type of process is a time saver. It's a game
Mm-hmm.
changer. I can go in and deploy Senteon, and within minutes, all the GPOs that I would have to manually change and verify and make sure that the settings took
Mm-hmm.
is done, and it's
Yeah,
done quickly.
I see two clear benefits for MSPs in general in that realm. One is you're protecting your customers, in that is critical first and foremost, and it's your responsibility to do so. But you're also saving money with that efficiency. I mean, time is money, and margins are thin. So if you
Mhm.
can use a tool like Senteon and have a fantastic way of protecting your customers by rolling out these baselines in the most efficient manner possible, you're protecting your customer and saving money on your end to get the job done.
Yeah, I love the ROI side. And this is something I'm seeing really just in vendors across, right? We want to be agnostic as possible in this educational webinar, but a lot of vendors are looking at automation as a way of differentiating and making sure MSPs have less of the burden on themselves for manual. So shout out to every vendor working on that automation piece. And yes, like Rich said, the ROI on that side is huge for the MSP. But Ruben, could you talk a little bit about why it's important to automate from the customer's point of view? Why it helps the customer that you have automation set up on your end?
It helps them because it overall reduces our burden and our cost. So we're able to pass that along to our client base
Mm-hmm.
because as a small MSP, for my focus is on the small business,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone knows small business does not have deep pockets. They're punching, they're pinching pennies, they're checking what their spends are, and if they don't see value in it, they're simply not going to spend. Um, by automating these manual processes that took a lot of time, we're able to save money in labor, and that
Yep.
in turns we're able to provide that cost cutting towards our clients. So we're able to provide, enterprise level based security at an affordable price that the SMB can um, tolerate, so to
That's
speak.
awesome. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's very important. And I like you said, you're working with these small businesses and me in the MSP market day in and day out. A lot of the MSPs I work with say, hey, my clients do not want security, right? I was able to sell them on an EDR and an antivirus. Like I got the basics in, but they don't really want me to do the fundamentals like hardening or anything like that. And especially with your background where fundamentals is where you came up with and you prioritized before automation existed. Do you talk to your customers about the importance of fundamentals? Do you ever say the word configuration to them, or is this just something you do and they have no idea that you do it?
For the most part, it's something that we do. It's part of our cybersecurity baseline.
Mm-hmm.
But I do let them know what it is that we're doing. We have a standard baseline that everyone has to meet, security wise, regardless of their size. One of the things that they're surprised about is that we're able to do it within their budget.
Yeah.
Because cybersecurity is not cheap, and being able to automate as much of the cybersecurity process that we can allows us to do that.
Yeah, that really must give you a competitive advantage above and beyond those others that are maybe trying to do similar types of things with a manual effort.
Yeah.
And thus raising the cost basis so much. So you really can achieve a competitive advantage in this realm.
Right, and it has helped. It has helped a lot. In when we look at new solutions that will help us better protect our clients. Of course, there's an upfront cost on our end to master it, to learn what this new automation does, if it's even going to work for our clients, because not everything is for the SMB space. But once we get that down, we're able to push it out to our clients and better protect them.
Ruben, let me ask you this: how quickly? Let's say I'm a small business. We're engaging as a new relationship. How quickly are you going after these baselines? At what point do you introduce
That's a good question.
these kinds of techniques that are standard practice for your organization?
It's pretty much comes up right away, because we're a security focused MSP. So yes, we can provide the traditional IT help desk, and that's usually what small businesses are looking for. They're looking for an IT company to help them solve their support issues. What they don't know is a lot of the time support issues is probably being caused because of cybersecurity issues that they're not aware of. So our focus has always been cybersecurity first, because if we can take care of that, that will probably take care of a lot of the issues that they're having.
I think that's one of the things I try to talk about in every single one of my conversations, and it's not always understood. So I love the way you articulate that. But by having that standardized onboarding process, standardized baseline, standardized images, right? It's preventing that end user to going into areas they shouldn't be, to causing systems not to work because they're not supposed to work, right? They shouldn't be there in the first place. So as an MSP, almost enforcing your standard, eating your own dog food onto them, that to me sounds like the best practice for any MSP.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
Ruben, are you so we're talking about benchmarks now, and I like to ask always ask the question too, are you introducing the CIS controls, our policy framework, into organizations you work with, or is that too much for them?
I introduce it to organizations that have a compliance requirement right off the bat. For example, most common would be HIPAA.
Yep.
For medical clients of ours, that's a must. They have, they have to meet compliance requirements, and we talk about how the CIS baselines that we implement, how they meet a majority of those HIPAA compliance requirements right off the bat.
Excellent.
And that in turn changes the discussion to their cyber insurance policies. What their policies require, and in order for them to be covered.
So you're able to use the CIS controls and the CIS benchmarks to help regulated organizations really comply to HIPAA or whatever the reg may be for their particular industry by using the benchmarks and controls. That's amazing.
Right. Even companies that don't necessarily fall under a regulatory body, majority of companies, if not all, take credit cards. That's PCI right off the bat.
Yep.
CIS benchmarks meet a lot of the PCI controls that are required.
Well, and most organizations as well are relying on cyber insurance policies at some level, and with that, there's obviously not a regulation, but there are requirements if you are going to be able to use your cyber insurance policy the way it's intended, you need to demonstrate compliance to best practices in general.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It actually brings up a whole nother topic with cyber insurance. I think this is getting talked about more and more. As MSPs, obviously you can't write out your own cyber insurance liability or pass that over. But a lot of MSPs I hear are helping the end client, earn this insurance. Is that an avenue you're seeing grow? And keeping this on topic of CIS, do you believe CIS is helping those insurers approve your clients?
Oh yes, yeah, definitely. As a matter of fact, what I end up doing every year is I will go and visit these cyber insurance websites, businesses' websites, and if they have a questionnaire that I can download, I will download their questionnaire to find out what they're looking for. And I present it to some of my clients. I go, look, these are the things that are coming up in the next year. These are things that we need to meet, because when it comes to time to renew your cyber insurance policy, you're probably going to see these things.
And at that renewal time, if you're not demonstrating, what they want to see, that's demonstrated in that questionnaire, most likely you're going to pay more, or not get, or not, not get insurance, or even worse. So,
Yeah.
so it's really important to help manage the cost of those policies as well. And Ruben, it sounds like you're really very helpful at navigating that realm as well. So that's excellent.
Yeah, one of the things I would analogize on is I would tell them, remember back what 10, 15 years ago, auto insurance policies. If you had a car alarm, or if you had the club and you could prove you had the club, you'd get a discount on your auto insurance right off the bat.
Well,
It's the
yeah.
same thing.
Flash forward to today, if you have a Kia, an older Kia that doesn't have that are getting stolen in cities left and right.
Oh yeah.
You know, Insurance companies are charging more for those particular cars because they're a risk, and your business operates the same way. If the insurance company feels like you're a risk, they're either not going to give you coverage, or you're going to pay much more than you want to be paying, probably.
Yeah.
One other topic I want to dive into before getting into the educational portion of today, everyone's favorite portion. Ruben, like I said, you're a Senteon partner. You looked at an innovative company like us and gave us the time of day. Sincerely appreciate that. One of the early partners of ours. Talk to us a little bit about how you work with your vendors. Clearly, you're willing to take meetings with newer stage companies. This must really separate you because, again, you're staying ahead of the curve, learning about new technologies. Well, talk to us a little bit about how you work with your vendors directly.
You know what? I try to be involved with them at least on a monthly basis if possible, because I like to know what their plans are, what's their roadmap, what's coming down the pipeline. Is that going to solve some of the issues that I'm seeing? If not, then I like to discuss. You know what, we're running into. We have we're implementing your solution. It solves all these problems, which is great, but it'd be beneficial if we could address this and that. Is that something that we can implement?
So you're not afraid to say that to a vendor. You're happy to tell them, hey, I need you to justify your price point a little bit more now because it's getting competitive. Like you're okay doing that with your vendors?
Yeah. I mean, it also helps them.
Yep.
Everyone's always looking to improve their service. So, through feedback, through constructive feedback. And if we can provide that, just like my clients provide that to me when I meet with them, I ask them, is there anything that I can improve on? Do you see me lacking in certain areas that I can improve on? If they give me the feedback, I know where to focus. And it's the same thing with my channel partners and my vendors that I work with. If I let them know issues that I'm seeing, or areas that I feel we can improve upon, excuse me, I think they appreciate it.
Awesome. And I know from my point of view, we definitely appreciate that. We even just launched a little community roadmap, so now we can try to aggregate some of the requests and do the whole upvoting like Ninja RMM and all those other big companies do. The interactive roadmaps, I think, are are really required at this point, or almost an expectation for vendors entering the space.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Let's go ahead and segue to today's topic, talking about Microsoft Defender antivirus and configuring that appropriately. So, before we get into the exact settings, Ruben, at a high level, you just mind introducing Microsoft Defender antivirus? Is this just, Microsoft's AV? That's what it sounds like to me.
Initially, that's what it was when it first came out. I know it went by another name. I can't recall off the top of my head what the previous name of it was.
Rich, you got it? You usually have that legacy data point for us.
Don't pick on the old guy. Come on.
But yeah, eventually, essentially that's what it was. It was Microsoft's way of getting into the cybersecurity antivirus business or game. But now it's over the years it's grown to be so much more. As Microsoft has developed it, they're able to, because they build the operating system mm-hmm. and all of their cloud services, they're able to ingrain their Microsoft Defender mm-hmm. into that.
Absolutely.
Probably in a way no other security solution can.
That's exactly what I wanted to say, and hopefully this isn't putting you on the spot, but I think you do use Microsoft Defender in your security stack. You do configure this appropriately. Mm-hmm. A lot of the MSPs I talk with sometimes say, hey, I have S1, I have CrowdStrike, so they do disable Microsoft Defender, which, isn't bad or good. It's just different levels of risk tolerance, and they're obviously transferring their risk to a different solution, right, to mitigate. Do you mind just kind of talking towards, if you have S1, do you need to also have Defender? Like, are there times where you don't need this if you have other solutions in place, or is this like a no-brainer in your opinion?
For me, it's a no-brainer to utilize Microsoft. Mm-hmm. It's embedded. It's already embedded, as I mentioned, into their operating system, into their cloud services. Especially if you utilize something like M365 Business Premium, which is what I provide to my clients.
Yep.
It's there. It's there. You're already paying for it. Why not use it?
Mm-hmm.
Use it. One of the things configure it to best practices.
One of the things, I'm an old Apple guy, and Apple controls the operating system very tightly, much probably tighter than Microsoft does. But that comes with some benefits, because you are, because Microsoft does develop the operating system, by having a layer on top of that they intimately know, probably better than anyone else, let's hope, that, they can put some hooks in there that are meaningful. So, I think it's a good solution. Obviously there's other tremendous solutions on the marketplace, but, I think it does have a role in general just because of its close access and proximity to the operating system in general.
Right. And we utilize it also in a layered defense model.
I want to dive into that. Yeah. You said my favorite words, Ruben: defense in depth, layered security. Let's give you a little 60-second reel here, Ruben. Could you introduce what defense in depth is and why you follow that type of strategy?
Yeah, defense in depth. The reason we follow it is because you can't. No cybersecurity solution is going to be 100% effective. The bad guys have all the time in the world to figure ways around these security solutions that we use. Yeah. Just relying on one is not a good idea. So we have cybersecurity in depth. We have different layers of cybersecurity that look for different things and sometimes overlap and complement each other. So if one solution misses something, the next solution hopefully will catch it.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
I love that you also said some solutions overlap.
Hopefully a third. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you try. There's a difference between making it as simple as possible and overcomplicating it. Because if we overcomplicate cybersecurity, then it becomes a hindrance. So there's that balance of where you balance
100%.
the
Where you're becoming, where protection is causing issues, system issues, and behavior. It's annoying your users. You don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
cybersecurity and the complexity.
Had a little network issue. Hopefully he hops right back in here momentarily. But Rich, let's oh, there we go. Got him back. Looks like some networking challenges we were joking about before the show are coming to fruition.
Yes. What were you saying, Zach?
Oh boy. Well, while Ruben hopefully figures out that connection and we can hear him soon, why don't we pull into this first slide here about the MITRE attack techniques? We always talk about here, the CIS benchmarks are all recommendations to mitigate the risk of various MITRE attack techniques from being successful. I know when Felicia was on the show, she emphasized the community defense model report. What's it called, Rich?
Yeah, we have a community defense model.
CDM, yeah, the community defense model and how it maps to various MITRE techniques and can mitigate the risk of that. So these are just some of those attack techniques that we want to highlight because they do relate to some of the settings that we'll be talking about here today. So, I mean, the one we always see here is phishing, right? Making sure we have our systems locked down so they can't gather more information to enhance their phish and have it look more real is a critical aspect of having these configurations in place. Rich, you want to mention another one of these?
The context of what we're talking about today, in the context of phishing, by using proper settings that CIS have defined for you and tested for you, they're just waiting for you to implement if you haven't done so already. But in the context of phishing, it helps. Let's say someone, a phishing email did get into your inbox. What this is going to do is it will scan download files and attachments, and it will present those risks sort of in real time for you. And it'll prevent users from really downloading stuff that you don't want potentially, and just accessing dangerous websites and just all the nasty stuff that comes along with phishing. Once that message is in the inbox, it's there. All right. So how do we control and minimize what kind of damage that can do? And by having proper settings, in this case, Microsoft, the Microsoft antivirus software in this instance, it's going to mitigate, the bad problems that may result in a phishing attack, which is really, really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll let Ruben talk about some of these when he gets back. Rich, I guess just as a little segue, as you are here every week representing CIS, I know when Charity, I think, was in a few episodes ago, we were talking about how CIS is really growing in global recognition, a lot of the benchmarks being downloaded. Do you mind I know, obviously, live webinars, we're going to have technical difficulties, but just to kind of segue a little bit, do you mind introducing, I guess, CIS, what the focuses are? Oh, we got Ruben coming back. Ruben, how's that audio? We maybe catch you this time?
Yeah, I swear,
joking
around this earlier is just a coincidence.
No worries. It's working a lot better now.
This thunderstorm rolling through or what?
No, it's a nice clear day outside. And
so that's how live webinars go. But since I already prompted the question, Rich, do you mind just kind of introducing, hey, what's CIS got going on in 2024? I know a lot of growth. Are there any major priorities that you can maybe give us a sneak peek or a highlight of before we jump back into the webinar?
Sure, absolutely, Zach. And so CIS, we're a global nonprofit. We're over 20 years old now. We're becoming a larger organization. When I joined CIS originally, we were about 200 people, I think, maybe 300, and we have over five. And I stayed for a couple of years, and I left for a bit and came back, and we're over 500 people now, and we are growing. We continue to grow. to help protect the cybersecurity community in general. Our mission is, a large part of what we do is try to serve the underserved, by providing free resources like the CIS controls and like the CIS benchmarks that are free resources. We layer onto that memberships that people can buy from us if they wish to help operationalize some of these tools if they don't have something like a Senteon or a Ruben doing it for them.
Right.
And what you'll see from us is kind of more of the same. We continually refine. It's a lot of work to keep these benchmarks in pristine condition as the technology evolves. Um, we're doing a lot in the cloud, Zach. We have
Yep.
benchmarks for the cloud service providers out there: AWS, Azure, GCP. You will see CIS adding additional cloud service providers as appropriate. And what you'll see too is the depth of which we provide guidance around those cloud services. Right now, we have very good guidance at a high level in terms of securing your tenant at an overall level, and we'll give you continuous reporting on that. But as more and more of our customers move to the cloud, we are helping to secure bespoke services within those environments. So you'll see more and more of us, more granular recommendations for various services within the cloud platforms. So that's something that we're very active on. My focus is working with the MSP community and evangelizing and helping organizations like Ruben's integrate the CIS benchmarks and controls into their offerings. A lot of work to do on that. Still, people are just learning, how the CIS can really help them secure their customers and make money at the same time, as Ruben described on the front end. Um,
No,
so,
I think that's really important. Is really the big thing with CIS, because I work with CIS every single day. Their solutions built off of it, but a lot of MSPs are still not familiar with it. So I
that's my
appreciate
job.
you committing your time to this, Rich, making sure we're here and having guests like Ruben to help evangelize what CIS is. So
Yeah, and if
very
CIS,
good.
if MSPs want to reach out and have a private conversation with myself on how some of the details work and how they can engage in similar fashions like Ruben is doing, I'm always open to those dialogues.
Awesome. All right, Ruben, let's kick the show back to you. We'll dive back into some of these specific settings here today. So, CIS benchmarks, as we talked about, best practices, not necessarily for everyone. We introduced how if you have S1 CrowdStrike, maybe Microsoft Defender is being managed by their tool, not necessary. But all these settings, best practices, you just got to look at what is correct for you. So the first recommendation we'll lay into you today, Ruben, is configure local settings to override for reporting to Microsoft Maps. Now, intuitively to me, having the ability to the local policy to override anything sounds a little scary because we can't control what goes on that endpoint day in and day out. But talk to us a little bit about this setting and why CIS recommends to not allow this.
Well, it's because it prevents the individual endpoints or users from being able to report security information to Microsoft on their own, their own way.
Yep.
By ensuring the decision to not share security information or security telemetry with Microsoft, we're able to centrally control that, and that forces all the workstations or all the devices in the domain to report security issues the same way.
Yep. Consistency is key, right? If you can have,
Yeah.
perfect world for any MSP I talk with is, hey, if I have a new solution, I want it to talk to this. I want everything to align, right? So making sure things are consistent and centralized is extremely key, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
You want everything working uniformly as much as possible.
Yep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you don't want any unexpected results, right? You don't want to have an incident occur and then all of a sudden you realize you don't have the telemetry that you expected. That's not going to be helpful.
No.
So, this consistency and having all of this information going to the right spot at the right time is critical.
All right, let's go over to this next setting here. So join Microsoft Maps is set to disabled. So a lot of these series, we always talk about Microsoft wanting more data than maybe they need. Any insights into this setting? And even if you can explain maybe what Microsoft Maps is, if possible, but tell us why CIS recommends to disable this setting.
Well, it recommends it because it essentially stops the automatic sending of security data to Microsoft. So that way we are able to control more or less what information is being shared. What information we're allowing to share with Microsoft with these telemetries, because it's for certain compliance regulations such as HIPAA, there's a lot of privacy concern over what data is being allowed to transmit across to another vendor.
And I
So
imagine in these automatic settings, we may not be completely confident there is no PII being sent, right?
That's right.
Microsoft's not filtering out just for the information that may help them. They're taking whatever comes.
yeah, they'll gather, essentially they want to gather as much information as possible to, find out what the problem is. But some of that information you might not want to be,
Yeah.
have in someone else's hands.
Yeah, that's couldn't agree more. I mean, you don't know exactly what they're collecting if that's automatically enabled. They're getting dump information, as Ruben pointed out. It could be PII, it could be login information, it could be any kind of sensitive information that you definitely you may not want someone else looking over your shoulder on. So just keep that in house. And I always say, if you're working with Microsoft and you're troubleshooting something and they need more information, that's when you provide it.
Yep, absolutely. And another just did you know fact on this slide here, it does talk about if these event logs don't have size limits, it could, take out some system performance issues as well. So making sure you limit everything is just critical when setting up these machines. All right, let's go into this next setting here. I hear about this constantly in my meetings. Configure attack surface reduction rules is set to enabled. So these ASR rules, Ruben, could you introduce what these are and why CIS says to have them in place?
Yeah, the attack surface reduction it turns on specific guidelines that help make your computer system less vulnerable to certain types of cyber attacks. The setting is crucial because, excuse me, blocking actions often seen by different malware attacks significantly reduces the chances of the threat succeeding. There's so many different avenues that threat actors can take. You want to try and reduce as much of that as possible, and this ASR plays a key role in actively preventing it.
Yeah, and it looks like as well with these rules, if configured correctly, is looking for the behavior that are known malicious actors, right? So it's not necessarily an EDR with learning mode behavior, but it does look for those key signatures and key types of behaviors so that it can better protect, right?
Yeah.
Is there ever a reason that an MSP shouldn't be having these in place? Because I will note, by default, these aren't here.
Yeah, by default, they're not there, and there's probably going to be a special
Everything depends.
Every company network is different. Certain CIS controls that we implement may break something.
Yep.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's to find out, okay, why did it break it, and is there a way that we can fix what's broken and keep the solutions in place? Because again, cybersecurity is paramount. So if we can implement both, that's the best of both worlds.
Let's talk about that just for one second. The CIS benchmarks and the CIS policy in the form of the CIS controls, they kind of have impact to systems, and the benchmarks in particular. If you're locking down systems that need to interact with other systems, it can cause issues. And that's why we have broken up the benchmarks into level 1, level 2, and level 3 settings. So most of the settings we talk about on in these episodes are level 1 settings. We generally highlight if they're not. But
Yep.
level 1 settings from a CIS perspective are designed to create minimal, if in hopefully no impact on systems and users in general. So,
Yep.
so that's our design goal with level 1 settings, is to have minimal to no impact. When you move down through the defense and depth settings, level 2 and level 3, that's where you can very potentially have system issues that you need to test for, and in those issues are just making you create better defense,
Yep.
and they're not necessarily a bad thing. They're a good thing, but they can have effect.
I think, and I want to highlight this a little bit more and get your input on this, Ruben. A lot of the times, hey, Senteon says we're going to configure all 500 CIS benchmarks for your Windows workstation, right? It's a lot of changes and can be very overwhelming. If you have a completely default machine, it's very likely this could break, but it sounds like you've experienced this. You understand what it takes, right? So an MSP that's a little nervous of causing this disruption, what kind of methodology do you follow to try to triage and figure out which setting is actually causing the disruption? Because it's not all 500, as Rich just introduced. Most of them, the end user shouldn't even notice. So could you introduce a little bit about how you identify which settings causing the issue, and then what you do once you identify that setting?
Yeah, once what we do is when we implement these settings, of course, we let our client know,
Yep.
this is our cybersecurity baseline. We're going to implement these settings that's going to affect a wide range of security choices. Or I try not to get too technical with
Use
it,
the
but
word settings as opposed
yeah,
to configurations. You never
yeah,
say
security
GPO. I
settings.
like that.
It's gonna affect a wide range of security settings, and a lot that we won't know what the impact is until we implement them.
Yep.
So that way they're aware. If once we implement, something breaks, they're not in a panic. Oh, this is not working. Why isn't this working? They address it to us. We go through the troubleshooting steps. Okay, what's not working?
Yep.
What were you doing? How did it work before versus what it's doing now? We look at event logs to give us an idea of what could possibly be the issue, and we narrow it down to, if we can, to the specific GPO setting in CIS that caused it. Once
Yep.
once we identify it, okay, let's revert it back. This one GPO, or maybe multiple GPOs that could be
Yep.
affected.
Mm-hmm.
Revert them back. Does it work? Yes. Okay, let's revert it back again. Let's make sure it wasn't a fluke. Did it break? Yes. Okay, so we've identified the specific GPO that's causing it. And, if we have to leave it in the default state for their application or their process to work, then that's something we do, but we note it down.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. That was a great overview on that, Ruben. I really appreciate that, because you're doing things the right way, right? You accepted that, hey, we want to do this. I identified why we couldn't. I documented, created the exception, and now you may review it whenever is applicable for that framework. So perfect. Thank you for diving into that. Let's get back into the settings. So we just talked about needing to configure these rules. Now, just a step further, like you said, these settings do sometimes relate. This is one that I feel is the exact same as the one we just talked about, but it's saying to make sure the ASR rules have a set state for each ASR rule. So I think the last one was maybe just making sure you're able to set these states, and now this is saying do it. Could you talk about this? If there's anything more to add, feel free, but I do know this is similar to the last one.
Yeah, there's the ASR has a bunch of rules in place that we're able to configure within the network. That means that what we're able to do is we're able to turn on or turn off the various ASR rules to better secure the workstation. What I like to do is enable all the ASR rules and find out if anything breaks, because a lot of the times, as you mentioned before, the end user isn't even going to notice.
Yep.
Yep.
But no, but just because they don't notice doesn't mean it's not working in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the most important thing. Just because you have security doesn't mean it has to break anything. It just needs to be in place. Perfect. All right, branching away from ASR rules, let's go to this next one here. Prevent users and apps from accessing dangerous websites. CIS recommends to enable block this. Intuitively, that just makes sense to me. But Ruben, anything special about this GPO to mention?
It does what it does what it says it's going to do. It's
Yep.
going to keep you from or it's going to attempt to keep you from accessing dangerous websites. Again, not everything is 100%. So you might get to a dangerous website that it just wasn't blocked, but that's exactly what it. This is one of the CIS controls that specifically says what it's going to do.
Yep, one of the few.
Yeah, you're not confused by what you think it's going to do or what you think might happen, but it's telling you we're gonna prevent you from visiting dangerous websites to protect yourself, because a lot of times users, I know as a matter of fact, not everyone looks at when they click on a link. They don't click on the link and then go look at the address bar to see if that's the website that I actually want to go to. No.
I think the interesting here with this setting too is that it calls out apps as well. A lot of the times your end users will have apps before you became their MSP, or they downloaded without your approval, right? This is still ensuring that even those approved apps or those apps they already had, legacy apps, aren't able to cause further damage, right? The defense in depth we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Because a lot of these legacy apps may not have been updated in years, probably. Relying on older technology or older code that is no longer secure.
Yep.
So we don't want those. we want to find as many as we can, because we really don't want them.
Those are your open doors, right? Those are the cracks in the seam.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where the MSP's job gets extremely hard and granular to identify their assets, right? Controls 1 and 2, hardware assets, software assets. It's hard to keep up to date with all of that. And then if they have a software asset, getting them to get rid of it or unauthorize it, that's where it becomes a very white glove MSP service that I feel is probably one of the harder aspects of your guys' role.
That's where you need that empathy that Ruben learned starting at the bottom. You have to respectfully explain why, application X is a no-go. It's, and if you do that with empathy and with respect and outlining what can happen by using that application, people generally get on board.
Yeah. Especially if it's an app that the end user has used for years, is comfortable using.
Yep. You can't just rip it away and say it's crap. That's not a good approach. You have to take a different approach than that, right, Ruben?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's get over to this next setting. Enable file hash computation feature is set to enabled. Let's get that on the screen. So sounds a little bit more technical to me. I can't imagine your end users would just understand this setting out of the gate, but talk to us about this.
Essentially what it's doing is the workstation of the computer, the operating system is creating a identifier or a fingerprint on a specific file. The file has certain information, whether it's a Word file, Excel, or a program file. It's got certain types of information. Based on that, the computer comes up with its own fingerprint, so to speak. And if anything changes within that file, the fingerprint no longer matches what's in the file. So that's one of the ways we're able to determine, has something been changed.
Yep. That sounds extremely valuable. I can't think of a reason an end user wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
Good overview on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it comes good for forensics, troubleshooting potential incidents.
Yep.
The end user, that I've never come across an end user that even knows about this.
Yep.
Right.
So this is more on the cybersecurity technical side. This type of information, and where it becomes helpful is in a breach response scenario.
Yep.
Perfect.
Something where the fingerprint or the hash has been modified. You want to look there first.
Yep. All right, let's go to this next setting here. Scan all downloaded files and attachments. CIS does recommend to do this. Again, pretty straightforward to me. Of course, I want everything scanned so my end users aren't clicking something they shouldn't, but or rather already clicked and it's being scanned. But Ruben, explain to us why this is critical to have in place.
Why wouldn't you want it scanned?
Yep, that's
You want to
exactly
know
what it is.
you're downloading is safe. Does it slow down the download process? Not really. It used to when our internet speeds weren't what they are now. I remember that it used to bother people. Downloads are taking so long, and it's like, well, it's got to scan and make sure that it's safe. Nowadays, there's really no effect, but I mean, it's common sense. You want to make sure whatever you're downloading from the internet is safe. Even if it's from a reputable website. Reputable
Adobe
websites get
packages can
all the
get
time.
spoofed all the time, right?
Yep.
Just because it says Adobe doesn't mean it is.
Exactly.
Yep, that scanning's going to pick out that malware that is obviously not expected and unwanted. So scanning that is just, you can't say enough. It's critical.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
cool.
and it's just one of the layers. If it so happens to get past the download scan, then your security layers that you have on the workstation itself will catch it when it runs or attempts to run.
Perfect. All right, this next setting here. Ensure turn off real-time data, real-time protection is set to disabled. This is another good old Microsoft GPO with a double negative. So turn off and disabled is actually saying, yes, please have real-time protection, which again, intuitively is making sense. But anything special about this setting you want to call out here, Ruben? Oh.
I think that's just giving you that continuous monitoring, Zach. That's really critical. The real time of, when someone clicks whatever, starts an app or clicks the link, it's going to have that real time monitoring to make sure the code that's executed isn't malicious. And that's really what that's doing for you, and also really a key setting, in my opinion.
Yep. And hopefully we didn't lose Ruben. Are we still there?
Am I back?
Oh, we got your audio at
now.
least. All right, perfect. Anything
so
more you want to
can hear
add
me?
about
You
this
just can't see
setting?
I can see you.
I mean, it does what it says. You don't want to have your antivirus, your real-time protection turned off. Bad guys, if they're able to that's one of the things that they're going to try to do. If they get into your system, they're going to try to compromise your security. Anything that gives them an advantage to being able to stay in your network or your computer longer without being detected. So, enabling it. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yep. Yep, that's perfect. All right, this next setting here, ensure turn on behavior monitoring is set to enabled. Again, we kind of introduced the ASR rules. It does look like Microsoft has quite a few built-in features that really relate to an EDR to me, behavior and whatnot. So it's really cool.
A little bit of a lot of things.
A little bit of a lot of things. I love going deep into these settings because I think this is a lot of stuff the general MSP, the general technician may not realize is available to them with their already paid for license of Microsoft, right? But turn on behavior monitoring is set to enabled. Talk to us a little bit about this, Ruben.
Well, what this is doing is it's essentially looking at it's looking at your system as a whole. It determines what is normal and what is not. When it sees something abnormal running, let's say a Word document trying to open a command prompt, that's not normal.
Yep.
And when it detects something like that, it's like, you know what, shut it down.
Yeah,
so that's what it's essentially doing in a nutshell.
It's a good example too. I appreciate that.
Yes.
And going into this next setting, we do have about 5 more settings and about 6 minutes left. So a little bit of rapid fire, but Ruben, I know you got this. So this one here is turn on script scanning is set to enabled. Again, scanning, monitoring all feels like positive things that should be in place. But what's this really saying?
It's saying essentially we're monitoring the scripts that are running in the background. Scripts are used to issue commands, launch applications, launch processes. This is going to check for those before it allows to run. It's going to see is the script doing what the script is doing. Is it safe? Is it legitimate? Is it supposed to be doing what it's doing, or is it trying to do something else on the back end?
Yep. Perfect. All right, a little bit of rapid fire. So the next setting here, configure Watson events is set to disabled. It's funny. The first thing I think of when I think of Watson is IBM's
I know,
AI
that threw me
Watson.
off.
I don't think this relates to that, but Ruben, tell us about this setting.
Yeah, it got me too.
I think what I think of this is that whenever your operating system or Windows comes across a problem it can't solve or it crashes, so to speak, what does it do? It wants to send a report to Microsoft, say we ran into this, we didn't know how to get around it, we froze. Essentially, it's almost like Microsoft Maps. You don't want to have your computer sending information to a third party that you don't know what they're sending.
Yeah, it's going to package up whatever it can and ship it to Microsoft, whether if you like it or not.
Right. Yeah, and you have no idea what it is, so
Right.
you want to minimize that as much as possible.
Yep.
Your end client chose you to be their MSP, so you could control their data no matter where it is, and make sure you know where it's going. So, perfect explanation. Thanks for clearing that up. That threw me off when I was reading it. All right, this next setting here, scan removable drives is set to enabled. I know something a lot of our partners are even doing as a feature request, and Rich, we can talk about this offline, but it's interesting because CIS does not have a benchmark that calls out specifically disable injecting like US thumb drives or removable drives, right?
But they do the controls. I know it's our.
It might be in the controls, but it's not in the benchmarks
we don't
directly.
I can't just jam anything in my laptop.
It's not a CIS benchmark. I know that for a fact. But what is the need to make sure you scan these? So Ruben, tell us a little bit about this setting.
Yeah, it's the same thing. If you plug in a USB drive, external hard drive, before it even attempts to read it, it's going to scan to see what's on it. Is there anything malicious on it?
Classic attack vector.
Yeah, and it goes back to the way that and they probably still use it today. Cyber attackers will probably leave thumb drives, and us being curious people, we find it. I say, hey, you know what? You can't resist the temptation to find out what's on this. Okay, and then they plug it in. So yeah, it's good to have it scanned, but with some of the controls, we disable it.
Yep. Perfect explanation. All right, let's hit this next one here. Again, another scanning one. Turn on email scanning is set to enabled. Please use these settings. But Ruben, again, why is also scanning your email important?
Email is one of the most widely used ways cyber attackers break into systems and steal personal information, is to phish, to trick you into clicking on the link, downloading the attachment, sending you to a fake Microsoft 365 login to get your credentials. So this is definitely a must. You have to have this turned on.
Yep. Awesome. And two more settings here in the last 2 minutes. Configure detection for potentially unwanted applications is set to enabled block. So again, this is probably something that's not on the approved application list. Something was caught. Of course, we're going to want to know about it as an MSP. But tell us about this setting here, Ruben.
Oh man, I hate pubs. These are applications that get installed automatically a lot of the times. Either they come with a program you're downloading, especially if it's a free
secretly
program,
bundled,
secretly bundled in the background, or if you visit a website, all of a sudden something gets installed on your computer. A browser extension is a big one. These things, you have no idea where they're coming from, how they're written, what they're doing. So to keep these off your computer as much as possible, I mean, it's a must. And we still find them.
And it could cause frustration to that end user, right? Because they don't realize what they want isn't getting blocked. It's all the other stuff, right? And it's that extra line of protection and communication that you have to do as their MSP.
Yeah.
Cool. Exactly. All right. Last setting here, and honestly, it is the theme of today's conversation. Turn off Microsoft Defender antivirus is set to disabled. Good old double negative. Microsoft doesn't even make their Defender on by default, which is fabulous. Ruben, you've talked a lot about Defender here today, but any kind of thoughts on this setting as well? Obviously, in your stack, this is a no-brainer.
Yes, you definitely don't want to have Microsoft turned off, especially if it is part of your solution stack. It just the ability of having Defender to be able to get turned off. I'm surprised it's not a default setting to have this thing disabled.
Only 20% of the recommendations we talk about in this series are on by default. That leaves about 400 some settings that are completely unsecure.
And that's 400 something settings that we used to do manually.
Yes. Whew. All right. Well, that was the last setting for today. So, Ruben, I do want to leave. I know we're a minute over. Apologize for that. But let's highlight Ruben really quick. And if there's just any closing thoughts that you want to share for the last 60 seconds, any takeaways you want MSPs from have of this, or just a best practice you want to talk about to close the show?
Yeah, I feel that the CIS benchmarks are a great place to start cybersecurity. If you're an MSP that is barely getting into cybersecurity, go look at the CIS benchmarks. They're literally hundreds of cybersecurity professionals helped to create this. Yep. They've done the research for you. They've tested these solutions. Why not start there? I mean, most of the work is done for you. It's guided. It tells you exactly what the solutions are for, what each control is for, why it's implemented. It's an absolute great place to start. It's where we started.
I think that's interesting you say, because there is hundreds of cybersecurity professionals who put this together, and how much would it cost to grab one of those professionals to give a 10-hour consultation with you? Thousands of dollars? Their answers, yeah. Their answers are already documented in a free download, right? And then if you want to automate it, you can also get it through us. But it's all going to be free resources. Start there. Read the 1,500-page PDF, right? Go slow, go at your pace, but it is what it is. Awesome closing thoughts, Ruben. And just to extend your thoughts one more time, we talk about workstation and server settings in this series. In 2 months or so, we're going to switch over to browser hardening settings. And the CIS benchmarks do have a lot more. They have Zoom hardening settings, right? It's not just Microsoft. It's not just Apple. Look at these benchmarks. Live by these benchmarks. It's foundational security. But all right, we are here every single week. So next week we do have Alan joining us to talk about some of these settings. We can highlight the slide for us. We have Alan coming to talk about the Microsoft Defender Application Guard, which is actually a next generation recommendation. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of MSPs actively using this today, but this will be a very fun topic. And then we got RDP setting or RDS services coming with Eric Woodard, and we got RSS feeds and some other settings coming in March with Corey. So really excited here every single week. And just to wrap up here, we're happy to connect on LinkedIn. We'll toss those into the chat afterwards. And if you ever wanted to kick off a free assessment with Senteon, we do have the QR code on the screen. See where you sit today with the CIS benchmarks. Maybe you're at that Microsoft 20% default, or maybe you've done some manual implementation like Ruben did. So